It is almost Championship Sunday, and that's what we're here to talk about today on this brand new episode of Very Cold Lasagna, which is the podcast that houses a safe and open listening platform for casual, cold, and even the dumbest takes on the world of pro wrestling and sports in general. I am your host, DylanLasagna. Welcome to today's episode number 87 of this freezing cold podcast that houses that icy cold lasagna. But again, let's remember, it is still spicy as hell. But here we are, NFL Championship Sunday, the most important weekend in January. It is not the Royal Rumble. No. Not the 2022 Royal Rumble in St. Louis. We are not here to talk about that, as we usually would like to. But pro wrestling is in a sad state of affairs right now. So pro wrestling and the Royal Rumble, I could care less about. I don't even know who should even win the Royal Rumble, let alone who deserves to win it. But anyway, in any case, what's happening on the day after the Royal Rumble is NFL Conference Championship Sunday. That is right. Here we are, the final four of the NFL playoffs. The AFC and NFC Championships are on the line to determine who is going to the Super Bowl in Los Angeles in SoFi Stadium, Super Bowl 56. Four teams have made it this far, made it this deep into the postseason, and we're about to find out who's going to make it to that final round of the 2021 NFL playoffs. And man, this postseason has been an unreal ride, man. You've had all the favorites upset, sort of. Only one pretty much remains, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs. You've already had the Green Bay Packers upset, Tom Brady and the Bucs gone, Dallas Cowboys also gone, well, because it's the Dallas Cowboys, and all that remains is the Kansas City Chiefs. And then the other teams, well, the LA Rams have a chance to make history of becoming the first team not just to host the conference championship, but to also host the Super Bowl. So both the LA Rams can have the opportunity to host both the NFC title game and the Super Bowl in its home stadium. History in the making for them if they manage to win this game. And then you got the Cincinnati Bengals. Here they are with Joe Burrow. They're in his second year, leading his team, the former number one overall pick, all the way to the AFC title game after last year's disaster. And then, of course, my San Francisco 49ers. Who would have thought? My 49ers starting 3-5, and, you know, at some point, they should have started developing Trey Lance, but here they are with Jimmy Garoppolo and that ferocious run defense, that passing defense, that overall defense, and they are here in the NFC title game against the LA Rams. So it's gonna be a interesting weekend. I don't know if it's gonna be a good follow-up to the divisional playoffs that we got this past weekend, and which was a wild weekend in of itself. But, you know, conference championship Sunday, or like any weekend of football in general, unlike pro wrestling, you don't know what you're gonna get. You honestly don't know what the hell you're gonna expect. You honestly don't, because any given Sunday, as they like to say in the NFL, and here we are. We have like three completely unexpected teams going to the conference championships. And who knows? Maybe we could get two completely unexpected teams by the end of Sunday heading to the Super Bowl. So, that being said, let's talk about these two games, starting with the game that kicks it all off on Championship Sunday, the AFC Championship game. The 4-seeded Cincinnati Bengals, the AFC North Division champions, going to Kansas City to take on the 2-seeded AFC West champion Kansas City Chiefs. It's a rematch of their Week 17 matchup that happened in Cincinnati that the Bengals won 34-31. And, you know, it was a matchup that the Chiefs seemed primed to win. They were overpowering the Bengals on offense, and, you know, at one point at halftime, they were leading 28-17. I mean, sure, 11-point lead. It's only halftime, but Patrick Mahomes and that offense were steamrolling that Chiefs defense. But in the second half, I mean, sure, people can blame the referees and penalties all they want in that game, but the Chiefs defense could not stop Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase from exploding all second half long, outscoring Kansas City 17-3. Yes, the Chiefs offense only scored 3 points alone in that second half. And the Bengals went on to win in a comeback on the backs of their kicker, Evan McPherson, and clinched their first AFC North title since 2015. That would set the tone for their playoff run. And here they are once again. So both teams, here they are in the title game. They've had some interesting roads. They had some interesting roads since their Week 17 matchup. For the Bengals, as the road team, clearly some things have gone a little more in their favor. For the Cincinnati Bengals at 10-7, they they clearly exceeded expectations as not just the division champions, but just making it to this point. They've had a very successful season with Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase, the rookie 5th overall pick, has broke out in his very first season. And then the strong supporting cast with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and CJ Uzama, as well as running back Joe Mixon. This offense is very explosive. And, their defense is also pretty solid too. But, there's a little bit of concern when it comes to a couple of their injuries and their secondary. As the 4th seed, they began their playoff run at home against Derek Carr and the Las Vegas Raiders, who were fresh off their Week 18 victory against the LA Chargers in a win-or-go-home matchup. So for the Cincinnati Bengals, they were productive for most of the first half. On defense, Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson on the defensive line, they were getting to Derek Carr, and they were creating 3 and outs on defense, and they were getting multiple chances for Joe Burrow in that offense to attack. And attack they did. They were creating a lot of chances to get points, and at one point they were up 17-6, I believe. And the highlight of that first half for Cincy was Joe Burrow's touchdown to Tyler Boyd right after the 2-minute warning of the first half. But it was kind of controversial because the whistle was blown by a referee, and that should have resulted in the play being dead, but they didn't. So anyway, aside from that controversial moment that happened, the aggression that Cincinnati showed in the first half was not there in the second half. And as a result, Las Vegas managed to storm back in the fourth quarter, albeit field goals, but still, it was still a relatively close game. And Derek Carr furiously got his offense, they got him going because, it was only a touchdown game for the Raiders, and had they scored, it would have forced overtime. But when they were in the red zone, Derek Carr threw an interception to linebacker Jermaine Pratt. He got a clutch moment in the final seconds, and the Bengals survived 26-19 and got their first playoff win since 1989, I believe, and ended the longest drought without a playoff victory. So I guess not having Marvin Lewis as your head coach did the trick to get your first playoff victory, as well as Andy Dalton not being your quarterback. So the next week after, they traveled to Tennessee to face the top seed Titans. The Titans were coming off their first round bye, getting everybody healthy, including their running back, Derrick Henry, on offense. And for the Titans, obviously, things not looking good, as we discussed on the previous episode, because the Bengals were creating plays of their own on the very beginning, because the safety, Jesse Bates, intercepted Ryan Tannehill on the very first play of the game, but all the Bengals could do was muster a field goal. So 3-0, okay, that's fine. But the problem was both teams were struggling. Both teams were struggling on offense for much of the game, and a big problem for Cincinnati, for not just this game but for much of the season, was their ability to protect Joe Burrow up front on the offensive line. But it really showed here. It really showed in this game against the Titans, because the offensive line, they gave up 9 sacks. Yes, 9 sacks to a furious Titans pass rush. And that is not good. Joe Burrow was not able to get away from the pressure. He was not able to find his receivers. He couldn't, I don't know why Zach Taylor didn't go for the short passing game because of the terribleness of the offensive line, but it was what it was. Fortunately, for the Bengals, the Titans were also sucking on offense because of Ryan Tannehill. So towards the end of the game, it was tied 16-all, and the Titans had a chance to win this game. That was if they could get past midfield. And, well, they couldn't because Eli Apple tipped one of Ryan Tannehill's passes, and Logan Wilson, one of the linebackers, intercepted it and gave the offense one more chance to let themselves win the game. And finally, the offensive line, didn't cave and allowed Joe Burrow to get a big pass into Jamar Chase to get into Evan McPherson's field goal range. And he won the game on a field goal, a very long field goal, to upset the AFC's top seed. Probably not, I guess you can't really call it an upset because they were very weak. But anyway, they managed to upset the AFC's top seed 19-16. So, for the Cincinnati Bengals, they're written as basement dwellers before the season even started by the media. But damn, here they are. AFC title game. Their first one in over 30 years. Remember, Boomer Esiason and Chris Collinsworth playing for the Bengals. And if they win this game, they're going to the Super Bowl. They're just one game away from making their dreams come true. So all they need to do to get to the Super Bowl is get past the AFC's King of Kings. Bow down to the king. Da-na-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na. And that is the Kansas City Chiefs. And, for a Chiefs team that struggled for the early portion of the season, and, even I was thinking, I thought it was going to be a Chiefs season filled with this dreaded Super Bowl losers curse, where if you lose the Super Bowl, you're not going to do as well or pretty terrible the following season. But here the Chiefs are. They're back in the AFC title game. Their fourth straight one, hosting the game at home, thanks to the Titans sucking and, beating the Bills in the divisionals. And here they are. At 12-5, the Kansas City Chiefs are back in the AFC title game. But again, it wasn't always easy going for the Chiefs. They struggled in the early portion of the season, but they shook off that notion of the loser's curse for now and pretty much returned to form. Not much needs to be said about Patrick Mahomes in the offense, but a defense led by the safety Tyrann Mathieu and defensive tackle Chris Jones. The defense has done pretty well during the second half of the season, but they've kind of faltered during the last two games of the season. So they managed to get the 2 seed. I forgot to mention that matchup against Cincinnati where the Chiefs lost. They cost themselves the number 1 seed, but I guess they didn't really need it much because, it managed to help them in the end because Tennessee ended up losing anyway. But still, they began their bid to return to the Super Bowl, facing the 7th-seeded Pittsburgh Steelers. They started off slow on offense, and eventually, after TJ Watt strip sacked them on the Wildcat play, returned it for a touchdown, that was pretty much what the offense needed to wake itself up. Patrick Mahomes and company pretty much destroyed that Steelers defense that had been pretty solid for much of the year, and it shat the bed in this game. And then obviously, Big Ben Roethlisberger was washed as all hell in this game. He stood no chance against the Chiefs, as the Chiefs sent Big Ben into retirement 42-21 in a total blowout. So that Steelers matchup only served as an appetizer, that appetizer to the main course of what was to come for Kansas City at home. A matchup with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills in the divisional playoffs. This is a highly anticipated rematch from last year's AFC Championship game and in Week 5. Both teams looking for revenge on one another. For the Chiefs, it was that Week 5 matchup where the Bills trounced them at home. For the Bills, they want to eliminate the team that beat them in the AFC title game a year ago. So initially, this highly anticipated rematch, looked towards being a kind of pseudo blowout because this Chiefs team was imposing their will against a Bills defense that, well, for a top-ranked team, was kind of like getting their will imposed on by Kansas City. Sure, they didn't have their top corner, Tre'Davious White. They lost him in the Thanksgiving game, but they were giving up a lot of plays to the Kansas City offense. Kansas City was leading this game 23-14 midway in the third. But then Josh Allen was like, "Nuh-uh, I am not going away that easily." He was lights out for the rest of the game. Him and reserve receiver Gabriel Davis had the game of their life. As the Bills went on to try to win this game as much as possible, but I guess Patrick Mahomes saw that as a cute gesture. Because once the Bills took the lead very late in the game, I think it was like 29-23, 26. Mahomes just needed 1 minute in the fourth quarter to throw a ball to Tyreek Hill and let him streak past the Bills defense, retake that lead. But then he also had to see Josh Allen burn as much time as possible again, throw another strike to Gabriel Davis to give the Bills the lead back. And then here we are. 13 seconds left for the Kansas City Chiefs to make something happen. But that was the problem for the Bills. 13 long seconds for the Buffalo Bills to play defense. And here was another problem. They elected against squib kicking this ball. And if they squib kicked the ball, if Sean McDermott called a squib kick, then the Chiefs would have had only like 1 or 2 plays to get that ball into field goal territory, let alone, I don't think they would have even got a field goal in. They would have had to Hail Mary that shit into the end zone. So the Chiefs instead get to run 2 big plays to get into Harrison Butker's field goal range to force overtime. And they did force overtime, where on a coin toss, Mahomes gets the ball first, and Josh Allen never touches it. So Mahomes, once again, burnt the Bills defense to a crisp, capped off by Travis Kelce, getting a leaping touchdown grab to seal a thrilling overtime victory, 42-36. So pretty much it was kind of like a reverse of fortune from the 2018 AFC title game against New England, except the Chiefs are on the positive end of it, I guess. So for Kansas City, the defense still remains a cause for concern, especially if they're not able to have Tyrann Mathieu, their safety, playing in this game with a head injury. But assuming he does play, even then, the Chiefs defense still was giving up a lot of yardage. But let's be honest, there's not really much denying that if Josh Allen and the Bills can stop them, is it really like plausible to bet against Kansas City from going to their second Super Bowl in 3 years, like actually the third straight Super Bowl, and potentially winning their second Super Bowl in 3 years? Really? Like, is it like, does it feel too predictable at this point? Does it? Sure, any given Sunday, but doesn't it just feel a little too predictable? I don't know. I just don't know. So some of the biggest storylines, I guess, going into this game is, this Bengals offense going up against this Chiefs defense in probably the biggest game of the playoffs. So for Joe Burrow, it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, actually this entire offense against a Chiefs defense that actually was giving up a ton of big plays, to not just Josh Allen and the Bills in the divisional round, but back in Week 17 when these two teams faced each other. So I know a lot of things have happened since then, but this Chiefs defense still gives up a lot of plays. And, in spite of the offensive line issues for Cincinnati, Joe Burrow has proven that he can sling the ball to his guys. Speaking of Joe Burrow, he's still pretty inexperienced, but I guess with this playoff run that he's having, he's gaining some. But he's going up against a more seasoned Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes has been in the playoffs for 4 consecutive years now. He's been to like 4 AFC title games. He's won a Super Bowl. He's lost in a Super Bowl. He's felt the lows of that last year's Super Bowl. So Mahomes knows what it's like to be in this situation, unlike with Joe Burrow. Sure, Burrow was in the national championship game in college, but that was college. This is the NFL. Much different situation. So it's a battle. For me, it's a battle of experience for these two quarterbacks. So some keys to victory for these teams. For the Bengals, I think it's pretty clear what they need to do. The number one key to victory is to protect Joe Burrow. The offensive line has to protect Joe Burrow at all costs. You can't have a repeat performance of the Tennessee Titans game. The Kansas City Chiefs pass rush, not too strong as the Titans, but if Chris Jones and Frank Clark demolish that Cincinnati front, that offensive line, then Joe Burrow is going to have a very long day. If that offensive line continues to fail, then Zach Taylor has to design plays for Joe Burrow to get that ball out, do some short throws, and let the receivers try to make some big plays happen. Get the mid-range, and then once the offensive line finally, if they try to settle in, then you can get the mid-range and deep shots going in. And then the defensive line has to contain Patrick Mahomes in the pocket. He can't let him get elusive, scramble out of the pocket, make all these crazy ass throws to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. It just can't happen. For the Kansas City Chiefs, just let Mahomes and the big three do their thing. You're playing against a decent Bengals secondary, but you're playing them again. You're playing against a Bengals secondary that doesn't really have a inch of guarding Travis Kelce, like they did in Week 17. But this is the championship game, and then you have to shadow man-to-man Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And lastly, feast on this offensive line. This Bengals offensive line is pretty horrid. Like I said before, the Bengals' lack of addressing the offensive line in the last offseason, it's coming back to haunt them. It really is coming back to haunt them. And, for both of these offenses, they're very strong. They have the ability to score on one another, as evidenced in their Week 17 game. This could be another shootout. It could be a blowout. But the biggest key, though, will be Cincinnati's offensive line and whether or not they can actually protect Joe Burrow this time around, unlike last week in the divisionals. Now, if they can hold up against the likes of Frank Clark and Chris Jones and that Kansas City pass rush, then Burrow can create some chances for his receivers, get some plays in for them. But if not, it's going to be a very long day. And Kansas City will be able to create some 3-and-outs on that Bengals offense, and that could lead to more opportunities for Mahomes to smash them. So Kansas City knows what it has to do to beat Cincinnati. They got to continually score with Mahomes every chance he gets. But the defense should also do their part in attacking that offensive line. That being said, I'm going with Kansas City because not only do they have the tools to go after Cincinnati's biggest weakness, but they also have the experience for Mahomes to outduel Joe Burrow in this kind of game. So I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs in this big game. Now for the other game. Oh yes, the other title game on this Sunday, the NFC Championship game between the 6th-seeded San Francisco 49ers and the 4th-seeded LA Rams. The rematch that nobody expected, right? Yes, that is right. The NFC West rivalry, the three match, the trilogy, the definitive edition, not the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy definitive edition, not that remastered bullshit. It is the 49ers and the Rams, the trilogy, the definitive edition in the NFC Championship game. Who saw this coming? Who really did? Sure, some people saw the Rams going to the NFC Championship game, but against the 49ers? Damn. Who saw that coming? Like, certainly not. Like, even as a Niner fan, that honestly is as truthful as it gets. Not me. So, obviously, these two teams, as division rivals, have met one another twice this season. So, they met each other back in Week 10 on a Monday night. At that point in time, the Niners were 3-5. And season-wise, they were at an all-time low because, well, they were running into an embarrassing stretch. They were coming off two embarrassing losses to the Indianapolis Colts in the rain, and then at home to the Kyler Murray-less Arizona Cardinals. Yes, they got their ass run out of their own stadium by Colt McCoy and James Conner alone. Yes, that is right. So then, meanwhile, for the Rams, they had their wave of momentum going at 7-2, but then they themselves were embarrassed in that same week that the Niners got embarrassed at home against the Derrick Henry-less Tennessee Titans. But a lot of that had to do with the Titans defense hammering Matthew Stafford. So the Rams were still we're still kind of the favorites to go to the playoffs, go to the NFC title game, perhaps maybe make that Super Bowl run. And during that week of the Titans game, they had gotten former Broncos linebacker Von Miller in a trade, and then they got former Browns receiver Odell Beckham Jr. As a free agent because he got released from the Browns. So this matchup, Week 10 matchup against the 49ers was like, oh shit. When I did that preview, I was like, oh man, this is going to be a Monday Night Massacre. This was going to be a massacre on Monday night. The Rams are going to super smash, going to get that smash ball and perform their final smash early and often on the 49ers. But then that didn't happen. The 49ers came in and out of this game well motivated to beat LA. They clearly got under Matthew Stafford's skin with heavy pressure in the defensive line, and the secondary played lights out, intercepting Stafford twice. Jimmy Ward picked him off twice, and the second one, a pick six. And that secondary kept Cooper Kupp relatively in check for much of the game, and Odell Beckham at the time was still trying to figure out the offense. So the Rams were kind of I guess you could call them out of sync during that time period. Meanwhile, for the 49ers, their offense mostly controlled the game with their run-first ball control approach. And that was a theme that would parlay for about a month. What I mean by run-first ball control, they were pretty much running the football with Elijah Mitchell. And this was the time where they started to use Deebo Samuel as a hybrid wide receiver running back. So you would start to see why Deebo Samuel is one of the most important players in their offense because of how much he can do. And sure, Jimmy Garoppolo got some big throws into Deebo Samuel, but the theme of this game was the Niners offense controlling the game with their strategy of running the ball and controlling the clock. So I guess this Week 10 matchup for the 49ers and the Rams was the Monday Night Massacre. Yes, by the 49ers as they beat their division rivals 31-10, and that would set the tone. That would be the beginning for the Niners' delusional playoff push. So these two met again in the season finale in Week 18. And, by the end of the season, both teams were faced with playoff scenarios heading into their season finale rematch. For the 49ers, all they had to do was win and get in. It was that simple. Otherwise, had New Orleans won, or had they lost, or had the 49ers lost, New Orleans would be the ones in the postseason. For the Rams, they had to beat the 49ers to win the division, to win the NFC West, or they had to hope that the Arizona Cardinals would lose to the Seattle Seahawks during that same time. And, in this game, early on, it seemed like the Rams were poised to accomplish their goal and take out the 49ers. They were smashing them 17-3 on the backs of that offense of Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and their tight end, Tyler Higbee. But then the 49ers readjusted and played a total team game in the second half. Jimmy G and that offense were burning that LA defense that played lights out in the first half. And then that LA defense got burnt to a crisp by the Elijah Mitchell, Deebo Samuel running game, and some big throws to George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and the receiver 3, Jawan Jennings. And then on defense, the Rams offense was pretty limited, and Matthew Stafford got intercepted twice. More on the second interception later. And then they sacked him a couple of times too. So the game went to overtime after Jimmy G got Jawan Jennings for a wide open touchdown. The 49ers, again, controlled the clock in overtime. And while they couldn't get into the end zone to win the game, Robbie Gould took the lead. And then it was on the Rams to try to win this game. The pressure was on them to not get a field goal to tie it, but to actually win this game. But then Matthew Stafford throws an underthrown, pressure-driven interception to rookie Ambry Thomas to give the Niners their delusional playoff spot and seal their win 27-24. Like, imagine that. Here they are. Niners fans were rejoicing. So the Rams clinched the NFC West, but certainly not in the way that they imagined. Because, sure, Seattle beat Arizona. Seattle gifted the Rams the division. But again, for the Rams, certainly not the best feeling in the world. Having clinched your division, but also losing to your division rival. And that's at the same time. So here they are, the NFC Championship game. But when it comes to their playoff run, certainly interesting directions that they took. For the 49ers, they got that playoff spot in the final week of the season in LA. So they became the 6th seed. It could have been worse for them. They could have been the 7th seed and played Tampa Bay earlier on. So fortunately for them, they traveled to the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC wildcard round. That was also on Nickelodeon, by the way. So in that game in Dallas, they managed to get strong performances from their defensive line and the running game. And that defensive line really stood out. They severely limited Dak Prescott in that Cowboys offense for much of the game, as well as the running attack on offense, which was the Cowboys' one weakness, which was the run defense. And for the Cowboys, they were just committing mistake after mistake. They were doing a lot of stupid things and committing a lot of stupid penalties. But in spite of all that, Jimmy G threw a terrible wide open interception in the fourth quarter, and that set the tone. That gave the Cowboys some fire in their ass to try to make a rally in the fourth quarter to win this game. But, their own stupidity yet again by letting Dak Prescott run the middle, calling a QB draw, dumbass Mike McCarthy, call a QB draw with no timeouts remaining from either team. But especially the Cowboys, you had no timeouts. You call a QB draw in the middle, let Dak Prescott slide instead of trying to run out of bounds, and then expect him to spike it with less than 4 seconds remaining, and then the referee bumps your ass instead of handing him the ball, and then you run out of time to spike it, and the Niners hang on to win 23-17, or whatever the score was. But goddamn, like, the Niners lucked into that one. The Niners lucked into that wild card win because of Dallas' stupidity. But the opponent that they were going to face in the divisional playoffs wasn't going to be a team that committed stupid penalties. Wasn't going to be a team that wasn't as mentally unprepared, at least at the time. And that team was the Green Bay Packers, the top seeded number 1 seed Green Bay Packers, and the likely MVP quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. And in the divisional playoffs where it was cold as ice, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams immediately hit the gas pedal on the Niners defense during their opening possession. A.J. Dillon ran into the end zone, took that 7-0 lead, and, it looked like that the 49ers playoff prophecy was going to be fulfilled. And if you don't know what that playoff prophecy was, let me remind you. The Niners make this delusional playoff push to get one of the wild card spots, and then once they reach the playoffs, they get smashed in the first round by a more game opponent. But then if they somehow survive, they would get smashed in the second round by the top seed or whoever was the next best opponent. But then the rest of the game happened. In the snowy weather that was Lambeau Field, the 49ers defense readjusted. They put on the afterburners, especially in that front seven with Eric Armstead, Fred Warner, and Nick Bosa. They put Rodgers in that offense in check since that opening touchdown they gave up, and only limited them to a field goal. So 10 points total. So kudos to that Niners defense, because they mainly kept San Francisco in the game because Jimmy G and that offense couldn't get anything going until the last 3 minutes of the game. And boy, they really needed that Niners offense, because the only way that Niners offense really woke up was a special teams miracle from Jordan Willis and Talanoa Hufanga. Let me backtrack a bit. Jordan Willis blocked a punt in the last 4 minutes of the game, and then the safety, Talanoa Hufanga, recovered it and got a special team touchdown, tied the game at 10, and then the defense got a 3-and-out on A-Rod, and the offense marched down the field, get into field goal range, have Robbie Gould send the 49ers to the NFC Championship game, 13-10, and who would have expected these 49ers to be in the NFC title game? Who? With a suspect secondary and mediocre quarterback play. And speaking of mediocre quarterback play, I don't know why you all are getting on Mina Kimes, like that ESPN analyst. I mean, this is not me trying to simp for Mina Kimes. I'm just saying, what Mina Kimes said on First Take, it's true. It's mostly true. Aside from the part where Jimmy G does is the guy that does nothing, but went on the A+ project. I mean, what exactly has he done? Aside from a couple of good throws and all that, is there a game where Jimmy G has won his team a game because of him, aside from New Orleans in 2019, aside from the Rams? Is there a game in 2021, aside from the Rams this year, is it supposed to be the quarterback that does, mostly all of it? Let me know that. So anyway, I know I sidetracked a little bit, but for a team that started 3-5, they've gone on a crazy ass deep run that many didn't expect, including myself. And they continue to defy that playoff prophecy of getting smashed in the first round, getting smashed in the second round. Are they going to defy that playoff prophecy of getting smashed in the AFC title game? We will see. So for the Rams, they got themselves the NFC West. They unfortunately dropped themselves to the 4 seed by losing to the 49ers. That allowed the Tampa Bay Bucks to get the 2 seed, and the Dallas Cowboys to get the 3 seed. So going into their wild card game against the Arizona Cardinals, the Rams clearly not the happiest of bunch of teams. So even worse for them, they had to host the Arizona Cardinals on the closer of Super Wildcard Weekend on a Monday night. But despite all that, they completely destroyed Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, because having another struggling team was exactly what the doctor ordered in Los Angeles. They completely handicapped Murray in that offense, severely limited them. I mean, sure, they were already struggling since they lost DeAndre Hopkins, but that defense of Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, they completely stuffed Murray, and they were creating opportunities on defense to completely run them out of the building. And Matthew Stafford in that offense had a relatively good game in the air as they hammered their division rivals 34-11. And then going on to the divisional playoffs against the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Bucks on the road, it seemed like, this Rams team was going to pump the brakes or was going to push on that gas pedal like early, often, and never let go of it against Tom Brady and the Bucs, because Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, OBJ immediately attacked that Bucs secondary, and that pass rushing duo of Aaron Donald and Von Miller were completely dominating the Bucs offensive line that was not having its top tackle Tristan Wirfs, and it forced Tom Brady to get that ball out quick. So pretty much Brady was on the ropes for much of this game. But they were leading 27-6 midway through the third, and you never want to count out Tom Brady. Y'all remember Super Bowl 51, right? Y'all remember that, right? So you get costly fumbles from Kupp and their returning running back Cam Akers. That allows Brady and the Bucs to rally back. They make their way back into the fourth quarter, tied things up at 27 apiece. 40 seconds left to play, but guess that was all Matthew Stafford needed to have the defining moment of his career. He found Cooper Kupp in open space to get into Matt Gay's, their kicker, into his range, kick the game-winning field goal with no time remaining, and they hold off the Bucs comeback bid 30-27, eliminate Tom Brady in the divisional playoffs, as the Rams on their way to the NFC title game against the 49ers in LA. One game away from potentially hosting not just an NFC Championship game, but also hosting the Super Bowl in their home stadium. So these NFC West champions certainly possess an explosive team on all sides. But yeah, you just sometimes have to wake them up when they're leading big, because they can slip up and let their opponents back in the game, and it can completely bite them in the ass. So some of the biggest storylines going into this game on Sunday afternoon is the Rams' ability to overcome their biggest kryptonite in the 49ers in order to play the Super Bowl at home. Because for the Rams, they've lost 6 straight against the 49ers. For whether the 49ers had a losing record in 2020, or even if they had a losing record in 2021, the Rams got their ass beat by the 49ers. The 49ers swept the season series against the Rams for 3 straight seasons. Like, whatever magic, whatever voodoo doll that Kyle Shanahan has on Sean McVay, it's clearly working. It's clearly working. So in the biggest game for both teams, the Rams have to find something to overcome its biggest kryptonite. It's not Tom Brady. It is not the Arizona Cardinals. It certainly isn't the Seattle Seahawks. It is the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. And for the 49ers, it's their own potential to cap off their Cinderella run with the NFC title win. I mean, sure, 2019 was something. 2019 was something, top seed, first NFC title game at Levi's. But, you know, going this far, going this deep, exceeding like everyone's expectations, like to everyone's surprise, they made it to the NFC title game, upsetting the top seeded Packers, upsetting the Cowboys. Can they pull off one more win and be in the Super Bowl in the same stadium that they could potentially eliminate their division rivals? Could it happen? And there's something to keep an eye on with where both teams' offensive lines, the left tackles Trent Williams and Andrew Whitworth. For both of them, they seem like they're going to be trending towards playing on Sunday, but you know, any last minute things could keep them out of it. So some of the key matchups going to this game is obviously going to be, one of them is Jimmy Garoppolo versus that entire Rams defense. Can Jimmy G actually play a good, mistake-free game against that Rams defense that has been playing red hot, aside from nearly blowing that lead against Tampa Bay? And then you also have Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp going against the 49ers defense for the third time. Like, have Stafford and Kupp are they going to be able to find a way to finally break that mold against the 49ers, like ferocious pass rush? And then the 49ers offensive line against Aaron Donald and Von Miller. One of the 49ers' biggest weaknesses is that right side of the line. They did not do good at all against the Green Bay Packers on a Saturday night. And when Aaron Donald and Von Miller were going up against Tampa Bay, against that offensive line, without Tristan Wirfs, they were attacking. They were eating and forcing Tom Brady to get rid of that football. So, something to keep an eye on during this NFC title game against San Francisco. So, some keys to victory for both teams. For the 49ers, Jimmy G, it's very simple. You got to play your absolute mistake-free, clean, best game yet. Like, I guess you could call this like a pseudo to what Mina Kimes said. It's like, you got to be part of the project. Like, if you want to prove Mina Kimes wrong, you got to be part of this project. You got to finally have the game where you're part of the project. You got to win the game because of you. You got to play your absolute, like, sure, like, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, no, he's just a game manager. He's just a guy that's part of the rest of the team. But the most important position in the NFL is quarterback. And at some point during this playoff run, and especially if the Niners make it to the Super Bowl, Jimmy G has to contribute. He has to be the guy to get the 49ers into the Super Bowl. So maybe this is the game against a division rival that the Niners have had the Rams number on. This is the game that he needs to do his best on. And then for 49ers, like, run the ball down the Rams' throat early and often. I mean, don't derail from having Jimmy G throw the ball, but just run the ball down the Rams' throat. I mean, the Rams' defense still not great, but the 49ers run offense pretty damn good. You got two studs, Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel. So go with your biggest strength. And then generate some serious pressure on Matthew Stafford. You got a really, really great defensive line with Bosa, Armstead, Willis. And, sorry, I'm mixing up names with the other person, Samson Bukum. If you were able to create some great pressure against a formidable, like a David Bakhtiari-less Packers front, then even up against Andrew Whitworth in that offensive line, they could certainly generate a lot of heat on Matthew Stafford. For the Rams, that offense has to take care of the football. Four lost fumbles is like unacceptable. That almost cost you the game. And they lost another one. It would have like definitely forced overtime and also lost them the game. And it would have been a completely different NFC Championship game because that offense creating those turnovers that wasn't called by Matthew Stafford was unacceptable. That defensive line has to attack the right side of the Niners offensive line. Tom Compton, Daniel Brunskill, not good right tackles and right guards. Not good at all. And lastly, go for Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham early to smash that Niners secondary. Make them a little scared. So this is a big matchup overall to cap off their 2021 trilogy. That's why I call it the NFC champ, the 49ers Rams, the trilogy, the definitive edition. Don't worry about that Grand Theft Auto trilogy definitive edition. So these two matchups have proven that, well, Kyle Shanahan owns Sean McVay. But will that narrative change on Sunday? That remains to be seen. What we do know is that the 49ers do possess a stronger defense than the Rams. I mean, secondary, it's suspect, but that pass rush, very, very strong. But what I think will make the Rams finally overcome their kryptonite is that high intensity offense. That's if they don't choke it away. And that's if they haven't totally cooled off of the high that was their divisional playoff game against the Tampa Bay Bucks. So Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, OBJ, Cam Akers, Tyler Higbee, pretty much the entire offense. If they can have the sequel like they did against the Bucks and apply it here against the 49ers suspect secondary, they're going to the Super Bowl. Whereas for the 49ers, a lot of what's going to happen on Sunday will ride on how effective Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be. How effective, is he actually going to move the ball, advance the offense down the field, and his ability to not make turnovers, not make any mistakes. It's not like 2019 where Raheem Mostert single-handedly carried the Niners to the victory in the 2019 NFC Championship game against the Green Bay Packers. I mean, unless Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel is going to do the job for them, then no. They're not going to do that. So Jimmy G is going to have to prove once and for all that he's going to have to be part of the project. He's going to have to be part of the project again. He's going to have to win a playoff game because of him. He hasn't thrown a touchdown in 3 weeks. That is not good. So he has to prove that the Niners won a playoff game because of him. Not in spite of him. Because of him. Otherwise, you're going to see this playoff prophecy get fulfilled 3 rounds later than it should have. Do you really want to hear me give that Charles Barkley guarantee that the 49ers will get smashed by the LA Rams in Los Angeles, despite that Red Sea of Niners fans in SoFi Stadium? Do ya? In all seriousness, for as much as I pick against the 49ers, I'm still picking the Rams. And heck, I have a good track record of picking against the 49ers and it end up winning, but in all seriousness, I'm going with the Rams. And that'll set up a Chiefs-Rams Super Bowl. And heck, maybe we'll get the opposite of that on Sunday. But we'll see. That's what the NFL is all about. Anything can happen in the NFL on any given Sunday. So, what do you guys think about these games happening on Championship Sunday? Let me know how you feel. Which one are you most excited for? Who do you think is going to the Super Bowl? Let me know how you feel any way you can and wherever you can. But that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I am your host, DylanLasagna. Thank you for tuning in to this fine episode, episode number 87 of this freezing cold podcast. Make sure you listen and follow to the show everywhere you can and however you can, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, and follow the show on social media on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. And as always, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of pro wrestling and sports icy cold with that Very Cold Lasagna. And until next time, when we reconvene to recap these games, peace out.